Okay, cool.
Awesome.
Okay. Hello, everybody, for viewers. Welcome to Dead Serious, my paranormal podcast with anything spooky. Today we have a very special guest, Dana Whitby. We're doing this via virtual because she's not here local to me. I would love to have you in person one day as well, but I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about for that one as well. She is a medium, a psychic who does tarot, oracle, and past life regressions. Am I leaving anything out?
Well, I also do sound healing.
Awesome. Yeah,
I do
right.
a lot of different things. I'm also a Holy Fire Reiki master.
Oh, I think I did know that. I did that. A Reiki master as well from our session together. You talked about that you did that. And that's how we actually met, by doing a past life regression and breath work situation. And it was life changing for me. I got lots of information in that. And I knew from that moment that we met that you were very special. So I'm super happy to have you here and have a list of questions for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
I can't be the only one who hears you. Tears falling down at the party. Saddest little baby in the room.
I'm so honored
Of
to be
course.
here to chat about all these things.
I'm so happy to have you. And you're my first like tarot person, oracle person. I've never had anyone like that. I've only had people with like specifically ghost people or ghost experiences, ghost investigators, that kind of thing. So this is something nice and different. Also, you can't see it's off screen, but like I have this little table of like, I have my camera set up to like capture in case something happens. But I have like our little crystal ball that we got when we were in your session from America. I think she provided that. We have a EMF reader just in case it's kind of triggered a little bit there.
Yeah.
We also have a cat ball here because like this has to be like manually tapped to go off. So sometimes that happens. And then we also have a bell because I've seen a few investigators use a bell.
Yeah.
And they have gotten some dings. So I'm like, I haven't gotten that, but I'm dying for the day that happens. I know it will one day, and I'm just going to like lose my mind. I usually do. And then I have this cute little ghostie that I picked up. She's so cute. I usually run Ghost Tube, which is like a modern day version of like a REM pod or like a spirit box, spits out random generated words that are, it uses the same technology. It's just like a more updated version. And it's very interesting, but I'm not going to run that today because you're kind of like a real life human version of that. So I think if we get anything that comes in, you might pick up on it anyway.
I will definitely let you know for sure. I'm excited
Yeah.
to see if any of that stuff goes off, though. We will see what
Yeah,
happens.
I know. I'm super. I actually probably won't recognize it unless I catch it out of my peripheral either, unless I maybe see it there. So I guess we'll be surprised if it starts going off. Okay, so I kind of broke these down into the different sections that are specific to what you do.
Sure.
So I'm just going to jump right in. When did you first realize that you had the ability to connect with the other side?
Yeah, this is a great question. It's actually something that I think I've always been able to do my entire life, even as a child. And I think sometimes when it's that natural to you, you don't always fully recognize it. Because also the way that I communicate with spirits and the way that it comes through me is through my own thoughts and through my own feelings, which is very, very hard to discern. You know,
Sure.
I don't typically, actually, I never have seen like a spirit in front of me. I have never had something where it's visual, mostly because I've told them I don't want to. I don't want to see that. I just feel it with my entire body. So I think that even as a kid, I think I would channel things. People would tell me I was like a wise soul. And I think it's because it was something else that I was tapping into, that I was expressing, that adults needed to hear, even through a child's mouth. And it felt natural and normal. So I never really questioned it. I was probably in my 30s. I think I was like my early 30s before I fully kind of realized like, this is more than just me. This isn't just me. I don't know these things about people. It's like it took a long time in my life for it to click. So I love to tell that story because I do believe all of us have that ability. I think all of us are capable of connecting to the other side. And it's so easy to just think that maybe you don't do it, but it could be just totally coming through in your thoughts and your emotions, your feelings, picking up on things. So yeah, it really wasn't until later in my life when I really kind of started studying my connection to the other side and wanting to kind of break some cycles and things that were in my family and doing some research on how all of this works, where we go when we die, what our spiritual lessons are, all of those things kind of helped me kind of crack open to this ability to channel and to communicate messages. And most of it is honestly just me trusting myself and just trusting that whatever feels like it needs to come out of my mouth is from a higher source.
Mhm.
And that has definitely been proven in readings that I've done for sure. So I just have to keep trusting it every time I feel the urge to say something, trusting that it is from somewhere else.
So you've kind of always had it. I kind of get that if something comes very naturally to you, you might not really recognize it as something special or like a gift, right? So it's interesting that you had that and you were kind of like, oh, like everyone has this. You're probably like, oh, this happens to everybody. And then one day you were like, maybe not, maybe it's something else. And then you started exploring that more. This was a question for like later, but since you brought it up, I'll go ahead and ask it now. I have heard that as well, that everybody has psychic abilities or has the potential to have them, but that most people are just too closed off or just don't recognize it. And so you obviously agree with that. Is there anything that you think people can do to like increase their openness to that?
Yeah, so many things you can do. The number one thing and where I really started was having a meditation practice. And I always say this too when I talk about this is that we put so much pressure on ourselves to like go sit in meditation and in silence and think we're going to get these downloads or we're going to hear these messages from the other side, that sort of thing. And it doesn't usually happen in the meditation. The meditation is what I believe creates this portal to the other side. It
Mhm.
is you saying, I'm interested in this. I want to connect. And so I'm going to make time and space for this in my day. I'm going to set aside 5, 10, 15, 20, however long you have, whatever you can do to open this portal up. And then you have to understand that things are going to come through when they come through, when they are meant to come through. And it might be when you're doing the dishes. It might be when you're driving. It might be when you have a conversation with someone and like something comes out of your mouth that's like really profound. And you're like, okay, that was actually spirit. That was more than just me and my intellect. That's how it works for me is it's like it comes through in different times. And that's to get my own channeled information. Of course, I have learned how to tap into it when I'm doing a session for someone, when I'm channeling, that sort of thing. But it really is kind of this thing that drops in when it's supposed to. And part of the way our intuition is set up is teaching us to trust. So it is a little bit confusing. It can be like, is this me? Is this someone else? And it really is about trusting those kinds of things that feel a little different than your own thoughts, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I talked on one of my previous episodes. I have a friend who thinks she's a little bit more psychic than others. She hasn't really explored it that much, but I think it's just something that comes naturally to her as well. And I was telling her that even within my practice with anything spiritual or like tapping into anything, I was telling her that I was trying to get back to meditation because if things happen like throughout your life, I think you can like, it's like subconscious that you're blocking it off, but it's more just like out of self preservation because you don't want to feel as much, right? And I've kind of done that over the last couple of years. So I know that meditation is the road back there. It's just really hard. Sometimes I like don't want to do anything related to it if I don't feel, if I tell people it feels like I'm fractured. And that's the best way that I can describe it. It's like my energy is not together. So I don't want to do anything because I feel like it's just too all over the place. And meditation, I liked that you brought up, don't expect it to be like an immediate thing. Because I think that is disheartening for people, including myself, where like I get sometimes so frustrated if I am trying to, and then it's just like nothing. And I just feel irritable and like frustrated. I'm like, why can't I connect, you know? But
Yeah.
I've kind of forgot that that's just a tool, you know what I mean? It's not like a sure thing. So like you have to kind of trust you're going to get the information when you need it. And like recently I actually did a card pull with my sister's oracle cards when I really did need it. And one of the cards that I got was wait. Like, it was just like, you're being too, and like, wait, like things are developing, like trust the process, like things are coming together. And it was really impactful. It was a very good reminder of that as well, that it's not just like immediate, and like nothing on that other side works like that. So
I totally agree. And that's the other thing, of course. I mean, being an Oracle deck author myself, so going back to like our abilities too, I've been reading cards since I was 15 years old.
that's insane. That's so cool.
Yeah, my aunt used to be Louise Hay's personal assistant. And so when Hay House started as a publishing company, my aunt would send like samples of stuff to me and my mom. And so that was how I got exposed to cards as a teenager, was an Oracle deck that she had sent us in the mail. And so I started reading cards as a teenager. And I think, connecting this also to the question of how you can open up your own intuition, using cards it's so beautiful because it's literally something right in front of you. Like, just like you were saying, you go to it when you need that, and it gives you such a clear message. It may not make sense in the moment. There are so many times when I've pulled cards and I've been like, I don't understand this at all. But eventually, if I sit with it, I realize that there was truth in it. Sometimes hindsight is 2020. But this is something concrete that you can go to. Cards are concrete. They do give you a clear message in the moment. So it's like, yes, listening to your intuition can be this nebulous thing that, you go into meditation and you don't know and you're trying to figure it out. And cards are so much more concrete. Even if they're not clear right away, it is something that's right in front of you that you can look at and see. So
yeah, like when you were doing more like psychic mediumship aspect of what you do, what would you say is the most powerful or emotional message you've ever delivered from spirit?
oh, goodness. Well, this was actually kind of interesting and sort of in the vein of your podcast. So I do year ahead readings for people. It's something I still offer, and I do them November through January. And one year I pulled the death card for someone in a particular month of the year. And I always read the death card in tarot as more symbolic, like not literal necessarily death. But this person actually did have someone pass in that month that the card was pulled.
I got chills.
Yeah, that was a really, really wild synchronicity, and one that did kind of make me rethink my my, I mean, yes, it is metaphorical, but maybe it could potentially mean that as well. So that was a really, really wild one. I also have helped someone. This one was really amazing. So when I first started offering readings professionally, not just to friends or for myself, but paid readings, I had someone come to me asking me if a very rare disease called Huntington's, so she knows it runs in her family. She wanted to know if she was going to have the gene. That's what she was talking to me for. And synchronistically, that genetic disorder also runs in my family. It's extremely rare. So to have her come to me asking about this particular thing was really wild because I understand it. Maybe like someone else wouldn't. And the gene actually stopped with my great grandfather, so it wouldn't pass on to me. But it's always been a thing in my family. So when she came to me, I felt a lot of pressure with that reading. I felt like really nervous because I had like this personal, connection to it. And the channeled message that came through was that we actually have control over some of these things. We think that it's like, you will get this disorder or you will not. It's in your genes or it isn't. And the message came through that she could actually do some work on her own DNA to kind of stop that and to reverse the flow of it. And so they came through with like some pretty specific things that they wanted her to do, some certain meditation techniques, some certain like past life healing things that they wanted her to do. And she did them, and she reached out to me later after having the blood test to determine whether it was in her genes or not, and it wasn't.
Wow, that's
So
incredible.
that was another really wild one. Those were probably two of the biggest ones that just really, really stood out to me.
Yeah, of course. And I agree with that too. I was listening to this other podcast. It's more of like a health. I've been like very into like my fitness and health. And it was a doctor talking about how there are certain things that are just like kind of unexplained, or like we don't understand all the science behind it yet. But he was talking about the importance of getting sun, and how he thinks it improves our, metabolic everything, our mitochondrial DNA. And there was a kid that he had a really bad fungal infection in both lungs. He was like 15. They took out one lung. They took out the left lung. It was like too far gone. And then it spread to his other lung really bad. And so they basically were like, he was on the highest antifungals, like the best medications. And they were like, he's going to die. So they gave him like literally 2 days. And because he was so young and a teenage boy, they were like, what do you want to do? Like, anything you want to do, we'll try to make that happen for you. And he said, I just want to go outside. And so they were like, okay. So like, let's figure this out and get this kid outside. So they did. And they said after the first day of him spending time outside, like in the sun, he started getting better. Wow. And then better and better and better. And they were like, what the, like all the doctors were looking around like, shit, like what's happening, right? So then they did another CT scan and his lung was clearing. And he's still alive now.
Oh,
and it's just like, we don't really understand. I don't know, like in any of it. Like, is it science? Is it spiritual? Is it a combination of both? The same doctor, I think, was talking about how this woman, her husband, they were a young couple, I think in their 20s, had come in because he deals with like end of life patients, basically. That's his niche. So he sees a lot of people near the end, and her husband was dying, and she just knew. She was like, I don't think so, and she was so sure. She would bring. I assume that she was like a witchy woman, in my opinion, because they said she would bring like homemade concoctions for them to put in his feeding tube.
Wow.
And they were like, okay, whatever, he's dying. So like, it's fine. We're not going to fight her on this. We're going to appease her. And why not? You know what I mean? So they were giving him these things. They were kind of like going through the motions, but no one really expected him to last. And she came in one day smiling, and he was like, what's going on? And she was like, well, I had a dream that he was coming home. And they were like, okay. You know what I mean? Like, good luck with that. Uh-huh. And he did. He walked out. They said like weeks later, he walked out, and he's still fine today. I do believe, like you were saying, that we can control certain things, even if it's mentally, like I think we do have a lot more power in that than we think. And I think even having, like you said, a message from the other side reminding of us that is super important, because it's really hard to fight science and facts when someone tells you this is what it is. I love that message.
I agree. It's amazing.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool, both of those. Do spirits ever surprise you with humor or something unexpected?
Oh,
like, are you ever kind of like giggle and be like, that's funny?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All the time. They use humor all the time. And I think that part of that is a big message for us as we in our living, that we take things so seriously. It's like, spirit wants us to laugh and have fun with things and find lightness and joy. And I can't think of like an example right off the top of my head, but I do feel like it comes through all the time. Sometimes it's in like a literal card too. You know what I mean? It's like, someone will ask something about, I don't know, like sailing on a boat or something, or should I take this trip? And then I'll pull a card that has like a sailboat on it, should I go on the sailing trip? And it's like something so literal. And it's like, okay, well, they're very clearly like saying that, things like that. So, yeah, I believe that that's intentional and on purpose.
Yeah.
Why they're funny.
I've had that experience as well, even up here when I've been doing my podcast. We have one ghost that comes up here sometimes that I think is kind of like a little bit cheeky, like a little bit of a smart ass. Yeah. And it says really funny things. I mean, it's like, it's pretty spot on, and it's very comical. I mean, we always get a good laugh. And I just attribute that also, like, I like your point of maybe just like lighten up. Like, it's not that serious, Also, like, don't be so afraid of death, because like we're all going there, and like we're here, so like it's probably fine. But also I think it's like there's a lot of different people, right? Different types of people. There's like funny people, there's not so funny people, there's people that are more serious, and people that are more malicious and more benevolent. So it's like, why wouldn't the spirit world be the same?
Exactly.
Like, I'm like, duh, there's gonna be funny ghosts, like, and I'd rather have a funny ghost than a mean one, So I love that kind of stuff. Ooh, this is a good one. Have you ever had a spirit refuse? Like, if you were trying to like reach out to somebody for for a client or something like that, have you ever had like a blocking, like somebody that like just didn't want to do it? like
Yeah.
spirit world wise.
And it's more just that it just doesn't happen. And I think that there's different reasons for that. There's different reasons. One, it could be that the person who's here on earth is kind of like wanting something very specific and is like forcing it. And when someone crosses over and is in soul form, they have like a higher perspective. And so maybe, they know that this person's intentions in finding out this answer are not super pure. And the soul is able to say, this is not like
Sure.
in anyone's highest and greatest good. So I'm not going to come through with that answer. Sometimes I personally believe, I think people have lots of different theories, but I read the book Journey of Souls by Michael Newton, and it changed my life and how I view the afterworld. And of course, then that also impacts how I see this lifetime. But he has this theory that when we die, we have to go through this process of like cleansing and, reviewing our life, and that we can't be available to communicate here on earth for a certain amount of time because our soul is, being refreshed. Do you have
Yeah.
something with that you like agree with, or?
Yeah. So I had a previous guest just like a couple of days ago. It was this week, and we were talking about that because I have the same theory, which is I've never read that book, but I have the same theory from my own experience. There were two people in particular that I wanted so badly to reach out to me when they passed. And both times I felt an extreme amount of frustration, especially with my sister, because I knew that she would, if she could. She was that person to be connected so deeply on that level. And I was like, why isn't it happening? Like, it's like, why? You know what I mean? Both times it took about a week time frame for them to make contact, and they did. And so I have that theory as well, that I think something happens when, and I don't know what, like maybe you're saying like with the soul refresh, or like, them just figuring out the ropes of like how to communicate and how to whatever. But I have that same theory. So that's amazing. I would love to know more about it.
Absolutely read the book. So Michael Newton he's a regression therapist, but he started out regressing people back to like their childhood to go through trauma, and people start going back to not just past lives, but their time as a soul in between lives. And so he started interviewing all of these people and recording their sessions. So the book is a little bit textbooky. It's like case studies, but it's how consistently these people all describe the afterlife in the same way.
Wow.
So he was able to put together like, this is kind of how the afterlife works based on what all these different people who don't know one another, who were not in the same sessions, all said about it. So it's so fascinating.
Oh my God. Okay. I really want to read that now, because
It's
that's
so good.
so that makes sense to me.
And your intuition was picking up on the way that works, So that's your intuition coming through.
I think it's because I genuinely, I approach things like on the ghost realm or the spirit realm so much differently than other people. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why they present to me more, they feel more comfortable. I think because I'm not angry at them, and I'm not, thinking they're all evil or something like that. Because I think that's how a lot of ghost people interact. It's like almost like cast you out, like evil. And I'm like, it's not, like, what? That's ridiculous. But I just genuinely want to understand, and I want to communicate. And I think that they feel like I was in St. Augustine. I have it all recorded, which is wild, but St. Augustine's like the oldest, city in America, basically. We had this experience where like we were staying in a haunted hotel, and there was a guy that was like in our group of friends. We went for a wedding, and he was like, my room is haunted for sure. Like, it's definitely, shit is happening, the lights and everything is crazy. So I was like, well, I brought my ghost stuff, and I was like, let's go, let's go check it out. So we went with a group, and nothing happened. Like, it was quiet as a mouse. And I was like, wow, there's like, it's nothing. And so I was like, well, there's another floor that's supposed to be haunted. Let's go up there. So we walked to the elevator, and then he was like, I'm so glad that he thought of this. I didn't even think about it, but he said, why don't you take my key card and go in alone without all of us and see what happens? And I was like, oh yeah, good idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't even think about, that many people could be like intimidating or anything like that. So I went in by myself, and immediately everything started lighting up. Words started spinning out. It was insane. And then I invited everyone else back. And from then on, it was fine. But like, I was so glad. It did teach me. I was like, oh, I think spirits feel more comfortable with certain people because they want to understand them. So I think I do get more information or like downloads related to that because they trust me with that information and know that I'm not going to like use it against them, I guess.
That's a gift that you have that feels natural and easy to you. And I mean, so that just, it kind of is similar. Like it just makes sense that they would feel comfortable with you.
Yeah. Sorry about the dinging.
Well, I didn't hear it.
Oh, okay. Amazing. I got a text message and my thing's connected. So I was like, oh, but then if I mute you too. On to tarot and oracle.
Yeah.
So you also made your own deck, which is insane and like such a feat and such an amazing, I don't know, it's just so inspiring. Tell me about how that came to be. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah. So, of course, I told you that I've been reading cards since I was a teenager. And so part of me has just kind of always had this dream to create my own someday. I just always thought that that was really cool. And I got to a point where I knew that it was time to start working on it, to start thinking about it, to start figuring it out. And again, just this download of information. I went into meditation one day and I asked what the deck should be about. And what came through was this idea of this phrase that's always used, to listen to your inner compass. And so I said, okay, well, I want to create a deck that helps people listen to that. And like, how do you do that? There's like this phrase out there that's like, be true to yourself, listen to your inner compass, follow your inner guidance. And it's like, well, how do I do that? And so I just told Spirit, I think that this sounds like amazing. They gave me the idea and I said, let's do it. Show me the way. And what came through, this was over like a series of different meditations. There's kind of a system for listening to your intuition. There's a process that you go through. And so they took this symbol of the compass and gave me a process. So the sun rises in the east. So we start there. The east represents recognizing your divinity. You can't listen to your intuition if you don't believe that you are a piece or a spark of the divine. If you don't believe you have that connection to something greater than you, how could you ever hear it? And so that's like the first step. And then, so that is what the east section of the cards in my deck represents. All of those cards are about understanding your divinity and seeing that. And then we move down to the south. So all of the cards in the south section are about shadow work and recognizing your humanity. Just like if you don't see your divinity, if you can't see your humanity and what this human experience is, you're also not going to be able to hear your intuition, right? And we have to come face to face with our darkness just as much as our lightness. They are intertwined. They are one and the same. And then moving into the west section of the deck, all of those cards are about taking this integration. So it's like, okay, I understand that I'm divine. I see these shadowy parts of myself. How do I kind of rectify that? How do I see myself in a different way? And then the north section of cards are about taking actual inspired action, doing something with this, creating with it, moving forward in life somehow. And then we circle back around and it's this constant like spiral that we go in is like we're always seeing more of our divinity, we're always seeing more of our humanity, we're always working to integrate, we're always working to take action. So it's a process that never really ends. But they gave me this framework, and so I started writing the deck, and I was also pitching it to publishers at the same time. And you would think that I would have an in at Hay House, but I don't. My aunt hasn't worked there since the 90s, so no one knows who she is. There's no in there. And I pitched it to between 10 and 15 publishers, and every single publisher denied me. And I, at that point, was like, maybe this is a sign from the universe that I'm not supposed to do this. That was my human self, my shadow self, my fear kind of coming up, of course, right? And because part of me knew I wouldn't have been given this wisdom if it wasn't meant to be put out there. So as I was struggling with this, my grandfather passed and I received an inheritance. And I decided, okay, I was given this money at this exact moment. I'm going to foot the bill myself and I'm going to self-publish.
Wow.
So I chose to go down that path. My husband has always been really supportive of me. Thank God for that. I don't know that I would have done this without his support. And I told Spirit, if I'm supposed to do this, send me an artist. And I found who I think is the most amazing artist for this. The art in the deck is incredible. It was a really interesting creation process. It was almost like there was like a Dropbox or a cloud, like a spiritual Dropbox where like my thoughts and my vision were going into, and she was able to tap into that and create the art. It was like some of it was exactly what I was envisioning without even telling her. Some of it was better even than what I was thinking of. It's like she took the seed and like expanded on it. And then there were some that we, kind of got stuck with, and we would use Pinterest. Like I would create a Pinterest board of ideas or, a vibe that I kind of liked, and she would play with that. But really, I just feel like that flowed pretty well. And then I had to research my own printers. And this was around the time when um, like ships were getting stuck in the ocean. Stuff was not coming from China at all. This was like 2021, maybe 2022, something like that. And so I chose to print them in the US, which ended up costing a bit more. I mean, it's just a fact of life. Anything from China is going to be cheaper, but I chose to print them here in the United States in Florida through a company called Shuffled Ink, who only prints cards. So that's like what they do. So I knew that they would do it well. And so I just did everything myself. I published it, I printed it, I dreamed up the idea, found the artist. And yeah, it was a really long process. It was probably 3 years, kind of start to finish, from the idea through actually launching them and selling them. So, yeah.
So that's incredible. I actually didn't know the backstory of that at all. Like, I think that that's also, it could have been like a test of like how serious you were to deliver that message, where it's like, let's see what she does if we give her this and this. And also, even with the inheritance, like where it's like, sometimes I do believe, like sometimes when we ask for something, it's not as black and white as what we want, right? Where it's like, I really want to get this published, give me a publisher. And the universe is like, no, I'm not going to give you a publisher, but I am going to give you other alternative ways to get there. But let's see what you do with that, right? So it's like partially your journey, like your path as well, to see what you're going to do. Because even with the inheritance, like, so it gave you that way, but a lot of people could have blown that, or like could have used it for something else, wouldn't even think about. You'd be like, oh, well, the publisher said no, so that is what it is, and moved on. The fact that you were so diligent with bringing it to be, I think, is super impactful. And also, like, honestly, even with things now, like, things from China, it's like harder, tariffs are higher, like everything's happening. So it would have been maybe a lot of companies that chose to use like Chinese production are struggling right now because they're over their heads with the amount that it would take to import. So it may be like all of it together was just like, this is the best way. You just don't see it yet,
I
and that's
agree.
really cool.
I think also too, like, if you think about it, if I would have gotten a publishing deal, they would have had an opinion about the art, about the
Right.
messages, right? So I had total 100% creative control, which I wouldn't have had. So I also think that was a gift too. And so you're right. I think there were a lot of things that it felt like a roadblock. It felt like hurtful to me that like no one loved this idea of mine, but I think it was actually a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, I was listening to something with like CEOs talking about like their biggest advice and things like that. And they were like, you have to be able to separate like the signal from the noise, right? So the signal would be like your calling, like what you're supposed to do. And like nothing should stop you from doing the signal. But the noise is coming and it's all the time. And so like you have to differentiate. And sometimes signal can feel like noise and noise can feel like, so it's hard to differentiate between the two. So you have to get used to knowing what your actual true signal is and to not get lost in the noise. So I think that was a perfect example of that as well. I mean, like just knowing the path and like just being like, no, this is my path.
I love that, like,
Yeah,
visual of a signal and noise.
yeah.
Differentiating. Yeah, that makes so much sense.
I have a friend who's on my first 2 episodes of the podcast when I started this. I'm only on number 7. You'll be number 7. Lucky number 7. But he's a poet and he writes. Sometimes when he's writing, he doesn't feel like it's him. And I know there's a few authors I was telling him that have had that happen. They'll write entire books and it's not really them. It's just like downloads from somebody else, something else.
100%. That's exactly what I mean with like intuitive downloads and like how I channel. It's like I know I didn't come up with this whole compass idea. You know what I mean? Like that is so beyond what I would just sit down and come up with as myself. And those are the things that I just trust and know are beyond me.
Yeah. I also like it's kind of related but different, but like Rick Rubin. I don't know if you've read his book. You should. It's The Creative Act. I'll put it here. It was life changing, and I've read it a couple times. But he was saying they were like, how have you been so successful? I mean, he's like wildly successful with production and in music, and he's kind of crazy, and he just kind of like, he's barefoot all the time, and he looks like disheveled, and it just is coming through him, and he really does believe that he's just getting. Sometimes he's just like, it's just happening. He has the theory that when things are ready to come, they're going to come, right? So he was saying when you're a creator, any sort of creative person, and in my opinion, like what you do is also a creative person, you have to just do it, right? You just have to do it because he said people will sit on things and then somebody else will have, they'll have the opportunity. And you're like, dang, I wish I would have done that. Like they did it first, or something like that. But he believes that when it's ready, when the universe is ready to deliver that message or deliver whatever, that it's going to come through somebody. So if it's not through you, it's going to be someone else that's willing to do it. So his concept is like, just do it. Like, even if you don't feel ready, even if you feel like you have doubts. And that's kind of changed the way I create as well, not being so perfectionist with everything and just being like, I just got to do it, because if I don't do it, someone's going to do it. It might as well be me,
Yeah, I totally believe that. I've heard that theory before. I guess maybe I didn't know who it was attributed to, but yeah, I totally believe that fully.
Yeah, he probably got it from someone, I would assume.
Well, there's always like he was the one that picked that and shared it.
Exactly. And I wouldn't know about it if it wasn't for him. I'm sure he got it from like, I don't know, someone much more like Dalai Lama or somebody like that. I don't know. So you do tarot and oracle. Mm-hmm. How do the decks differ for you? Do you think that they are very different, or do you think that they deliver similar messages but in different ways? Like, because I think people get overwhelmed. Like me personally, I think I remember telling you, like, I'm really trying to learn tarot. It's overwhelming because I feel like I have to memorize everything. It's just so much to memorize, like, over 70 cards. It was like, oracles, I feel like more intuitive. So I feel like it can be like a little bit more like a leeway. What do you think?
Yeah, this is such a good question. I do believe that they cross over. I do think that messages and the human experience crosses over through oracle and tarot. And so when I was writing my deck, I took inspiration from tarot. There are some cards in my deck that are my interpretation of certain tarot cards, right? So for example, like one of my favorite tarot cards ever is the Strength card, and I put the Leo card in my oracle deck, and Leo is a lion. There's a lion on the Strength card. So I basically took my favorite interpretation of my favorite card and I put it in my deck under my own kind of twist on it, right? Mm-hmm. But I think the thing with tarot is it is extremely overwhelming. And yet I do think it still lends itself to some interpretation. There are, different meanings that I have learned from different tarot readers over time that I have incorporated that feel good to me. And I have other meanings that are maybe like I've read in books or a little more old school kind of classic interpretations of certain tarot cards that I have just tossed aside. And I don't read them that way. I don't read that card with that message. I read it with this message. It feels good to me. I think it's also, in terms of tarot, it's about finding a deck that has art that syncs up with the way you intuitively look at a card. So for me, my very favorite tarot deck of all time is the Lightseers Tarot by Chris Ann. I think that you can so easily look at a card and its artwork in this particular deck and interpret it and take this message. So for example, if you're watching the YouTube, I'm holding up the Three of Wands right now. The Three of Wands is about taking a pause before you continue on, right? Like you can see her standing here with her surfboard. just taking a moment to like be here, be present, be in this moment, like look out at what is all around you, the beauty, before you continue on. So the artwork in this deck just jives with me and with my intuition and with the messages that flow through. So find a deck that really, really connects to you. Because as approachable as Oracle cards are, and I even wrote an Oracle deck. So I'm saying this as, someone who loves Oracle cards, obviously, but each one is so different. The beautiful thing about tarot is once you learn those meanings, you could read literally any deck that you pick up. Whereas with Oracle, that author's flavor is in that deck. And yeah, they're more open to interpretation, but there is kind of that nicheness in an oracle deck that doesn't really exist quite as much in tarot. So it's all beautiful. It's all good. Like you're going to get what you need no matter what deck you pick up or whether it's tarot or oracle. I do think that they have similar crossover, and yet it's all about what like fits the most with you, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. I actually haven't thought about it like that. I guess there's like pros and cons to both.
Yeah.
Where I was just so overwhelmed trying to learn tarot, where I was like, okay, I'm just going to do oracle because I just feel like less pressure. But you're right. Like maybe there is a benefit in that there's limited direction that the tarot can, like you pretty much know, which is not something I've really thought about before. I think my sister had that deck. I inherited her cards, and it's like, I think that looks very familiar. I haven't played around with it yet, but she left me, it was like 76 decks.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
I know. And I was like, holy moly. I got boxes of her witchy things. And it took me 2 years to go through them. I just let them sit there because I just couldn't. I just was never ready. And then when I did, I knew she was into it, and I knew that we talked about it a lot. I knew that she read a lot of cards. I had no idea. I was like, I don't even know where to put them. It's so many decks, and she would kind of blur them all together. She would just pull a few and mix them and use whatever comes. But I'm pretty sure she has that one. So I need to look into that one, because I do think that helps. It's almost like an oracle artistry on tarot, which is helpful.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I totally agree with you. I think it is like a nice crossover deck. And I also love that your sister like crossed over, and I love to read for people and use both. I love to use oracle cards along with tarot because they do complement one another, and there are different messages in any different deck that you might get, and yet they're all still describing the human experience, right?
Yeah. I think it takes someone very knowledgeable and skilled. You could probably do that. I would be like, wow. And then I wouldn't know what cards go to where. I'd be like, I think it takes some years of practice, but you could definitely do that. Well, this you probably already answered with the death card, but I was going to ask, what's the eeriest or more accurate reading that you've ever given that shook somebody? But I would probably say tick the death card is and then someone passing. It's pretty accurate, and that's pretty eerie.
It was very eerie. That really was the eeriest one. I just remember getting that message from her and being like, oh my gosh, full body chills. Yeah.
Yeah. I have chills now because even like you're pulling them a year ahead.
Yep.
So it's like, you know what I mean? It's not like even a month ahead where you could know any knowledge of like, that's just literally, and also like, they just like, what are the chances out of that many cards, that many months, that it's that specific month? There's no other explanation. That would be very, very a big coincidence. And I don't believe in coincidence.
Wild. And I am thankful that particular client is still a client of mine. I'm glad she came back. Thought that she would be scared off.
No, I would be like, okay, I'm only going to use you forever. So obviously, this is a good one. Do you believe that cards predict the future, or more that they reflect our current path?
Mm-hmm. I personally, listen, I don't believe in absolutes either. So I do think sometimes they can predict the future, just like with that death card. But I would say more often than not, I do think that they are more of a reflection of what's going on right now. However, when I use them for predictions, I personally believe that there is this dance that we walk between of free will and making our own choices and destiny. I believe there are certain things that we are destined to experience. I think our deaths are one of those things. I think, though, that the way we get to certain milestones or certain destiny points in our life, that is what's up to us. And so, in a way, we can't fully 100% always predict the future because you get to choose how you get to these things. So, whenever I pull cards about the future, and this is like a tip for anyone who loves using cards, I always take as many options as I have and I pull cards for each of those options. And I ask, like, show me the path ahead if I were to do this. Show me the path ahead if I were to do that. Because that still honors your own free will, but it does show you kind of like, okay, this is what it would look like if I walked down this path. I did a reading for a neighbor of mine, this sweet girl she's now in her sophomore year of college, but when she was trying to decide which colleges to go to, she came over and we pulled cards for every different college that she was considering. And this is like spirit being like so literal. This is actually one that cracked me up. One of the schools she was looking at was the University of Hawaii. And I live in North Carolina. So, like, Hawaii would have been very far for her. And the card that came up was the hermit card, which is like being all alone,
Yeah.
like away from your family and stuff. And I was like, okay, you go to Hawaii, like quite literally, you're going to feel alone, you know?
Yeah, pretty straightforward. Like, you're not going to know anybody. Good luck to you.
Not gonna know anybody. And there are benefits to that, right? Like,
Yeah.
I told her, like, the beauty of that is that you get to be away from outside influences, which is one of my interpretations of the hermit card. It's like getting away from the noise and like going back internally, like, what do I believe? What do I feel? But you could also feel very, very lonely in that. And maybe you don't want that. So that is a great way to work with the future with cards, is to kind of weigh all your different options with different paths.
Yeah, I like that. I like that you give options that are not so absolute. Because I do think it's like, it is like a not like an unpredictable science sort of speak, where you're like kind of, it depends on us as well,
Yeah.
because of free will. And I think we're constantly evolving. So like if you do a card pull for somebody today, we might be a completely different person in 5 years. So that might shift and change. So that makes sense to me. Yeah. I still have a lot more. We're gonna have like 2 episodes in this one, which is great. I'm gonna take a bathroom break,
Yeah.
and then we'll be back and talk about past life regression.
Perfect. Let's do that.
Okay, I'll be back.